What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. I'm a writer and editor for Packer Report. You can always follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Hope you enjoyed your Super Wildcard Weekend, which is still a super lame name for a playoff round. It doesn't exactly have the ring of Final Four or Elite Eight or Sweet 16, but it was a really good weekend of football. 3 triple headers I can certainly get on board with. Of course, just coming off of Sunday's games where we finally learned, what our divisional round matchups are going to be, including your Green Bay Packers taking on the Los Angeles Rams at Lambeau Field. I'll get to all that in just a minute, but I do want to discuss a little bit more specifically about Saints and Bears. And I know this game ultimately doesn't, immediately affect the Packers coming up this weekend. Saints will be taking on Tampa Bay. Hopefully Green Bay's playing the winner of that game. I think they will be, but it was interesting to watch this Saints-Bears game. The Saints were clearly the better team here. The Bears injury situation, Darnell Mooney, Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson, those guys being out, certainly not a great look for the Bears. It certainly didn't help them. And then, Anthony Miller gets ejected from the game. The Bears were certainly behind the 8 ball in this one and just simply were the worst team of the two. The Saints deserve to win. But what I was interested in was the play of Mitch Trubisky in this Bears offense. And it was interesting to me, you had Jim Nantz and Tony Romo announcing the game. And towards the end of the game, they're, talking about Mitch Trubisky and saying, he's made these strides towards the end of the season. And, his completion percentage went up. He had those big games prior to the game against the Packers. And then, of course, the playoff game. And some of that's true for sure. He maybe played some of his best football, but you also have to realize that Matt Nagy dumbed down that offense about as much as humanly possible. I mean, they barely attempted anything over 10 yards. The one time they did was off of a trick play where Mitch Trubisky has one read on it. He threw a great pass. It was dropped by Wims for Chicago, but this is not an offense that you can succeed with at a high level in the NFL because there's so many limitations to Mitch, and you have to give him 1 or 2 reads, hope that he can execute that, not turn the ball over. Even in those games, even against the game against the Packers, we still saw the turnover-worthy plays from Mitch Trubisky. So yeah, they had, better completion percentage and they had some success in the 3 or 4 games prior to the Packer game, but this is not a winning formula for Chicago. And if you're a Packer fan, obviously that's a great thing. You hope that Nagy and Trubisky and, Ryan Pace and that entire group, the whole band is back together. That's great. But I did find it interesting that, during that game, at the end of that game, that the narrative seemed to be, well, this Bears team improved at the end of the year and Trubisky, that offense was abysmal. And again, no Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller gets ejected. Their offensive line wasn't at 100% for a while now. I get some of those things. And they certainly found something in David Montgomery. We don't even know if Allen Robinson is going to be back next year, right? So this is going to be a major offseason upcoming for the Chicago Bears. But I just don't agree with this idea that Trubisky's played better of late. And even if it is, if this is better, this is as good football, it's simply not good enough. So we'll see what happens in this offseason. It's going to be a really interesting offseason for the Chicago Bears. Do they tear it down and start afresh and start anew? That's the worst case scenario, in my opinion, if you're a Packer fan. You want them to keep this 8-8, 7-9, 6-10 sort of team together for as long as possible. Never be in a position to draft that franchise quarterback. Likely all the quarterbacks are going to be gone. They could make another aggressive move up, but they're in no man's land right now. And again, if you're a Packer fan, that's exactly where you want them to be. Fun victory for the Cleveland Browns over the Steelers. Of course, take the big lead and just kind of have to hold off. And the offensive line injuries really hurt them. And especially as you're trying to just run out the clock and the Steelers kind of know what's coming, no Jack Conklin and no Joel Bitonio. And then they get more injuries as the game goes on. Kudos to them for finishing that game off strong and putting away the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that was a playoff win for the Browns that was a long time coming, so that was very enjoyable. Ravens-Titans was an okay game, certainly not anything to write home about. I thought the Titans did a really good job on Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense early, playing to their tendencies. And then Lamar and that crazy, 45-yard touchdown run just changed everything. And it's just one of those moments where you're so frustrated as a defensive coordinator because you do everything right. And this dude that's just special in the open field takes over, makes a few guys miss, and he's gone in the blink of an eye. So certainly had a round of some special moments. I think an upset in Cleveland over Pittsburgh. What a way to end for Cleveland. What started 11-0 and ended, what was it, 1-4? I think 1-4 to end the season, including a loss in the first round of the playoffs against the Cleveland Browns. So really tough. It's going to be an interesting offseason for them as well, and what happens to Ben Roethlisberger and that entire Pittsburgh organization. So interesting. Next week we set up, of course, Rams Packers, which I'm going to get to in a moment. Ravens Bills should be really fun. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. You get Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes, which, oh, by the way, if you're not aware, was one of the greatest college football games of all time. Here were the yards and the numbers from that game and from college football in their first meeting. These are not fake. Patrick Mahomes was 52 of 88 for 734 yards. This is one game. 52 of 88, 734 yards, 819 total yards, and 5 total touchdowns. Baker Mayfield, 27 of 36, 545 yards, 564 total yards, and 7 total touchdowns. So 12 total touchdowns combined, over 1,300 total yards. Like, just an absolute ridiculous game. Over 120 attempts combined between the two of them. So I don't think we're exactly going to get that with Chiefs Ravens, but we've seen those two step on the field before and have a special game. So hopefully as fans, we get a reenactment of that. And then Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Bucks and Saints, and hopefully as a Packer fan, you'll get to watch that as, to see who faces the Packers in the NFC Championship game, who's coming to Lambeau Field. And I think it's shaping up to be a really good game, really good round of divisional games, which I think is going to be fun as we kind of go into this upcoming week. So as for the Packers, they're going to play at 3:35 on Saturday. So it is the Saturday game. It is going to be on Fox. It'll be the number 2 Fox game, basically. So no Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, which I know will be the delight of some. I really enjoyed Joe and Troy. I know a lot of people don't, to each their own. But from a weather standpoint, looks like it's going to be cloudy, somewhere between 20 to 25 degrees, no precipitation. So no crazy Lambeau snow game, at least as of now, in the weather. And I think, some people I noticed on Twitter were disappointed with the Saturday afternoon slot, saying, usually the Packers are going to be the primetime game on Sunday afternoon, and that's the main game, or at least the Saturday night game. Usually the first Saturday game is kind of billed as the lesser of the games, right? Saturday night is this primetime game on NBC. And then, the Sunday, normal time game, like the noon or 1 kickoff, is like when people are used to tuning into football. And then, of course, you got your Sunday 4:45 or whatever it is that is usually kind of the main game, the main event, if you will. So it's usually the Saturday day game that's kind of the lesser of all the games. But this is perfect for Green Bay, in my opinion. First of all, and again, I want everyone to be healthy in this game, but logically, right? You've got Jared Goff with a thumb injury. You got John Wolford coming off some sort of neck head injury. Aaron Donald has messed up ribs. David Andrews, their guard, is dealing with tendonitis. You've got Cooper Kupp dealing with a knee issue. Like, you will probably want that game sooner rather than later. I want all of them to play, but maybe let's not let those injuries heal too much, right? And for Aaron Donald in this game, so I should start by saying it sounds like Cooper Kupp's going to be completely good to go. Aaron Donald, they're hopeful. What's the word? My guess is he's going to play in some capacity. They don't know who they're going to start at quarterback yet, so that'll be definitely something to keep an eye on. And then David Andrews, it sounds like, is will kind of be a day-to-day game time decision as well. So there's a lot of injuries for this Rams team. But let me start by talking about Aaron Donald just for a second. This is a player who uses an arm over and is all over the place, violent with his hands. If he has a rib injury or rib issues of any sort, and he becomes any less dynamic, that changes things completely for both the Rams and the Packers. So we'll see. Again, hopefully he's healthy, and you want always these games to come down to the players on the field and how they perform. But this could definitely be a limiting factor for Aaron Donald and the Rams. And again, it just gives those injuries just a little bit less time to heal. It also gives the Rams less time to prepare, right? They just played a game in Seattle. They fly back. They don't know who their opponent's going to be, obviously. Green Bay could hedge their bets and start preparing for LA as soon as that game was done, probably, 3/4 of the way through that game. And, is obviously sitting at home, starting to prepare for that game. And then, of course, later in the week, You also have the Rams that have to travel to Green Bay, stay in a hotel. So, meanwhile, Green Bay is rested, they're recovered, they had a week off, so this is a huge opportunity for Green Bay coming against a team who just had to play a tough game against the Seahawks and is a little bit banged up. So I think you get a bonus there as well. And then really, maybe the most important thing, if the Packers do in fact win that game, they get to sit back and relax. They're the first team that's into the Final Four. They'll start to scout, Saints, Buccaneers. Now, I'm sure they've got notes from Buccaneers early in the season. They should probably throw those out, but they have some of those notes. They can prepare for both of those teams, watch that game from home. If Tampa wins, they'll travel from, New Orleans to Tampa Bay. And then, obviously the game would be the following Sunday, but it gives Green Bay an extra day of recovery and preparation and everything like that. So honestly, I think this is your best case scenario for Green Bay. It gives them a lot of potential advantages overall, which I think is a great thing. Some of the really fun key matchups that are going to be worth watching in this game as we start kind of looking to preview it. Of course, Jalen Ramsey versus Davante Adams. That should be fun as hell. From a Packers standpoint, sometimes what I see is teams have maybe a little bit of overconfidence in the player and just matching them up one-on-one. Most teams are going to give a ton of attention to Davante Adams, right? The Rams might say, you know what? We're not. We're going to play this game straight up because we think that Jalen Ramsey can stick with Davante Adams one-on-one. And if I'm the Packers, I love that mindset because I don't care who you are. I don't care how twitched up of an athlete you are. Davante Adams is a savant at wide receiver. This is not your typical dude that's just going to win with height, weight, speed like DK Metcalf, who's a really good wide receiver. I'm not talking bad about DK here, but this dude is just different. And unless you have the ability to know what's coming ahead of time, Davante can beat any corner in the league. So I think this can actually be an advantage for Green Bay if, in fact, they decide to go one-on-one Ramsey with Adams. I think Adams is going to, Ramsey will win his share of battles in that game too, but I think overall Davante will win that war. Za'Darius Smith versus an Andrew Whitworth, or even, if you want to say Rashawn Gary versus Andrew Whitworth, like those matchups, that's going to be really, really fun for me to watch. And then, of course, Aaron Donald versus Elton Jenkins and Corey Linsley. That's what it'll be billed as. I'm sure the Rams are going to get Aaron Donald matched up as much as humanly possible against Lucas Patrick. I would very much expect Elton Jenkins to stay at guard in this game because of Aaron Donald. I do not think that they are going to mess with that one iota and, move Elton Jenkins out to tackle. I would 1,000,000% expect Billy Turner to stay at tackle and Elton Jenkins to stay at left guard, especially for that matchup with Aaron Donald. But you can bet that LA is going to try to get him set up against Lucas Patrick as much as possible. Some other fun things, Packers number one scoring offense on the season, Rams number one scoring defense. Matt Schneiderman, pointed out the Rams allowed 17 passing touchdowns all season. Davante Adams on his own caught 18. So again, you've got this juggernaut passing offense. Davante Adams, 18 touchdowns on his own. Tonyan had 11 on his own. They allowed only 17 passing touchdowns all season. Ben Fennell also pointed out the Rams only allowed 3 passing touchdowns over 20 yards through now 17 games. One of them just against DK Metcalf. They only had 2 in season, now 3 in 17 games. So this is not a defense that gives up explosive plays, or at least explosive plays for touchdowns. Packers going to open up as 7-point favorites in this game. I think that's right. And you know what? The old adage is in the playoffs that defense wins championships, right? And you're going against the number one defense in football. And I do think the Rams are going to punch the Packers in the mouth, a little bit from a defensive side of the ball and what Green Bay is going to try to do on offense. I think Aaron Donald is going to be very tough to contain. I think Jalen Ramsey will be a really difficult matchup for Davante Adams. I think they have some things in their favor. But when I look at this overall, I think the Packers are still going to get theirs on offense. This is too smooth of an offense that can counter almost anything that you give them. I still expect them to put up, 24 to 28 points. And frankly, I don't think the Rams have that type of production with where they're at on offense right now in them. I think Green Bay's just more of a complete team. They're playing at home. I like Green Bay's defense more than I like the Rams offense. And I like the Packers offense more than I like the Rams defense, or at least neutral. So, I think this is a game that Green Bay wins. And we'll go through it more through the week, and I'll make my official prediction later in the week. But I like this matchup for Green Bay. should be very entertaining to see what it ultimately brings. Hopefully Green Bay wins that first game, then gets to sit back and see whether they'll be playing Tampa or New Orleans at home. And then, one of either Bills, Ravens, Browns, or Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Give me Baker Mayfield versus Aaron Rodgers for the Super Bowl. I will take it. But Mahomes Rodgers would certainly be very fun as well. But that is a long way away. Thanks so much for joining me today. That's all I got. I'll be back tomorrow breaking down something, who knows what, but make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out Andrew and Kyle on today's audio version. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.